Okay, hello everyone. Today is August 6th, 2020. This is the every 2 weeks update on React Storefront, the open source PWA framework built on Next.js for high performance e-commerce websites. I have with me Mark, who's going to walk us through the updates since for today's version. Mark, you want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. So we're now at version 8.15 and a few enhancements to the session handling capabilities of the framework. So these methods were added to SessionProvider to make it easier to establish sessions, sign in, sign out, sign up for new accounts, as well as manage the cart. So add to cart, update cart, and remove cart item. These were added to our connector interfaces as well to make it easier for connectors to handle these bits of functionality automatically. The fetchFromAPI method that's primarily used to fetch data from the API when navigating on the client now includes cookies when it makes requests from the browser. So if there's anything that's session specific or user specific that the API needs to return, that session can propagate on that call now when you use fetchFromAPI. And there were a few enhancements to the search functionality. So now you can set a minimum query length, which defaults to 3, which is the number of characters before the search will submit and start providing suggestions. So this can lower the burden on your API, so it won't have to like search when the user just enters the first character. And also the debounce time is now, you can change the debounce time. So it defaults to 250 milliseconds. That basically means that the user has to pause for, in this case, 250 milliseconds before the search will submit, so that as the user's typing, it doesn't submit a new query on every keystroke and flood the server. And it turns out at some point, hopefully in the recent past, the debouncing functionality had actually regressed and wasn't working, so we fixed that. And that's the last update.
Okay. So at this point, we'll turn it over to Q&A. Again, feel free to type your questions into the chat and I will read them off. First question coming in is, I recently tried to deploy React Storefront on the XDN with the latest version of Next.js 9.5. It didn't work, but downgrading to Next.js 9.4 did.
Yeah, so there was a very subtle breaking change in the way that, I guess, the Next.js apps are validated when they're being built. And in order for Next.js apps to be deployed on the MoveWeb XDN, we do some special optimizations there that we're breaking that validation. So it was actually a pretty easy fix, and I think about 2 days ago, we released a fix for that. So if you upgrade to the latest XDN core library, then that's no longer an issue. And I think, in fact, our demo is now running on Next.js 9.5.
Oh, great. Next one is, how are sessions established with the underlying e-commerce platform when using a connector?
So the answer is it depends. Probably each platform has some different way of establishing a session. So let me go back to the methods that we added here. So typically, the one method that had been around for a while on SessionProvider is just the one that it calls to establish a session when the browser first loads. And so typically there, the connector would go and get something like a JWT token or some other kind of token that identifies that user, something that you could store publicly in a cookie and then pass back with each subsequent call. For example, what's really important is like adding items to the cart or updating the cart, anything that's long-lived. And so the different backends, have subtly different ways of doing it. I know that Salesforce, which is the one we're working on now, uses a JWT token. I think Magento has something similar. And so this is largely handled by the connectors. It's not something that you generally need to worry about if you're using a connector. But if you're implementing a connector, you'll want to look for some kind of a method call that returns a token that could be put in a cookie and then sent back with each subsequent request.
So one, important caveat to pull out of that is it correct that basically the session, to be clear, is stored on the user's device, and it's not, stored in any other state in the system that React Storefront runs on, correct?
Yeah, so what's stored on the user's device is just the identifier for the session.
Yep.
No other data than that. So beyond that, the actual state would be stored within the database, for the platform like Salesforce or Magento.
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is you don't need any additional database or anything else for React Storefront. There's
Correct.
all the state is either in the database of the e-commerce platform or it's on the device, for handling sessions at least.
Correct.
Okay, great. Okay, that's, I think, all the questions we have for today's session. We will see you guys in 2 weeks. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.